Good morning. I'd like to speak to you on the subject of plagiarism in the pulpit. If I were to be preaching the gospel on Sunday morning to my congregation, I would come fully prepared to deliver my sermon with the knowledge that it came directly from God's Word, the Holy Bible. Just knowing that I spent endless hours preparing to deliver God's message through me to my congregation, because I feel that I would be cheating myself and my congregation of anything less than giving them 100% of the gospel truth. It is my responsibility as a pastor to put in the necessary time and effort to follow God's lead in my preparation for my weekly sermons. That is why I am fulfilling God's calling. If I were to incorporate a sermon message or use a few lines or a quote, I would mention that in the beginning and give credit where credit is due. I would also stay clear of making it a habit on using others' materials. In my research on this very subject, I found 2 articles with opinions that are not necessarily mine. However, to show you and others and their viewpoints on the subject of plagiarism in the pulpit, my first article came from Preaching Today by Corey McPherson, and he says, plagiarism in preaching is not always easy to define. Of course, speaking verbatim, large portions of someone else's material without giving credit should be off limits. But in most cases, what constitutes plagiarism in the pulpit varies depending on who is asked. Every pastor will have crises that come and go in the life of the congregation, impacting weekly schedules on our best intentions. Furthermore, each congregation comes from a cultural background that influences every aspect of the church, including preaching. My second article comes from Church Leaders, Just What is Pulpit Plagiarism by Ron Forsyth. I believe conscience is one of the 3 major issues here. And he quotes, "Am I guarding my own conscience in my sermon preparation and delivery? I must add that my conscience has to guide me, and your conscience has to guide you. If the conscience of others dictates my own, then my conscience will insensibly be conflicted. We aren't wired to be driven by the conscience of another. Each person's conscience must stand or fall on its own. The conscience of some preachers compel them to cite meticulously. Others aren't so compelled. We must have faith before God that our sermon preparation is approved by Him." Quote, "Why should my freedom be judged by another conscience?" 1 Corinthians 10:29, NIV version of the Bible. The second major issue is diligence. And he quotes, "Am I faithfully studying the word that I am preaching?" If using the work of another is simply an excuse or temptation to neglect my solemn duty, I've strayed from my calling. Chuck Swindoll emphasized this to me over and over in an interview. Sermon preparation is hard work. We are workers. And I quote, Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of the truth." 2 Timothy 2:15, NIV version of the Bible. The third major issue is that of trust. Frankly, I think this issue brings the most clarity to Scott Gibson's question. If our mode of sermon preparation breaks trust with those to whom we preach, then the answer to the question posed by the book's title is a clear no. How can a relationship proceed with broken trust? It cannot. It is restored, and restoring trust is far more difficult than guarding trust in the first place. A preacher will constantly be faced with a stream of decisions about how to present materials and when or if to cite a source. Through intellect and conscience, each of us is equipped to regularly make those decisions. Romans 14:22 23. And my sources came from Preaching Today by Corey McPherson, 2014, February, www.preachingtoday.com, Skills 2014, February, Plagiarism, Integrity, and Giving Our Best. And the other one is from Church Leaders, Ron Forsyth, www.churchleaders.com, Pastor, Articles 138301, Just What is Pulpit Plagiarism? And in conclusion, I don't believe that plagiarism in the pulpit and plagiarism in writing of a paper, there's no difference. I believe that if you're going to be using an article, someone else's works, their quotes, that it's best to bring it up front in your message as soon as possible, and then in your papers and schoolwork, list them in your references. That way you don't have to worry about plagiarism at all. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I received a lot of information out of this, and I will use it going forward, and I thank you.